for today's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by both Scott Gardner and Brent Bouldin, the dynamic digital marketing duo behind newmediaadvisors.com. Together, they've led marketing efforts of some of the biggest brands in America, including Choice Hotels International and the Bank of America. I can't wait to hear their views on how the right SEO strategies can lead to successful customer retention. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm super excited for our conversation today. Like I mentioned, you are my first dynamic duo to join me on the podcast, so I think we'll have a really interesting conversation, and I'm excited to hear more about your experience and I guess advice on SEO, because obviously it's a very important and complex topic. But before we dive into all of it, let's get started with knowing a little bit more about your backgrounds from your perspective. So maybe Scott, we'll start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about your background, and then Brent will go to you after.
Yeah, sure, Lauren. Went to school at UNC Chapel Hill, and right out of college, jumped into the traditional bank management kind of job, finance job. Did that for a year, realized I was stuck in a box, did not like it. I'm more of a risk taker and wanted to really do something with the internet. That was back in 2000. So early days, took a gamble, went to a 5-person startup that was doing website design, a little bit of advertising. And we grew that from 5 to 200 people and from like 500,000 to probably 30 million in revenue in about 4 years. And as by circumstance, we wound up building the largest SEO agency in the US. That was around 2005. So that was meteoric, pretty quick growth for an agency. Loved the growth curve, but we weren't really staffed to handle all the demand. And we began to have customer retention problems, right? And so we were, promising good upside, but we weren't able to really fulfill all that with lack of capacity. And then did a few other startups, then realized I was ready to take a break from the startup world. 2010, jumped into Bank of America. That's where I met Brent. And as they say, kind of the rest is history after that. So did the in-house thing for probably 10 years. Always knew I wanted to relaunch and open my own business. Wanted to really serve mid-market, large enterprise brands. And to do that, I feel like I should go work in-house at those brands. So fast forward, we're here today. The path is heading the right direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I went to Georgia Tech for undergraduate, took a job in management consulting. Worked in a couple of different big 5, big 6 at the time, management consultancies. Spent about 15 years doing that. In that time, I got my MBA and went into strategy consulting with one of the big strategy firms, and really enjoyed the challenge of helping companies solve problems they didn't know how to solve on their own, or helping them do things a little bit better. But as often happens, life sort of got in the way, and I started having a family, and I needed to stop living out of a suitcase and being gone all the time. And so went in at Bank of America. I got my start there in digital marketing and led some big teams, had a good run there for about 8 years, and then left, took a job at Choice Hotels where I was the head of marketing and did that for a few years. Enjoyed getting into a different industry and learning that space. And then as Scott said, we stepped out there and started our own thing, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. Very interesting. And also you guys are bringing such a wealth of experience to your company. So that's really cool. And so with New Media Advisors, what made you guys, or when, did you guys decide to go into business together, and how did that journey start?
Yeah, we had been, partnered in both places for 12 years, I guess. And we used to sit, we'd go on trips to site visits and things like that. And we'd sit in a hotel and talk about some of the challenges we were having with our partners. We had big budgets and great partners, but we noticed a few things that we thought were problems with those specific companies, just problems with the industry in general. And that was namely that a lot of attrition, a lot of turnover. You get a team that you really like and things are going well, and invariably people, those roles just rotate. And then we also had a lot of junior talents were rolling in, and we felt like we were sort of treating folks how to do the work and on our dime, and then they'd go do it somewhere else. And so we thought, there has to be a better way. If companies know how to do a lot of the stuff that the agencies do for them and could do that in-house with their SEO or their content, they could get better results. And we had done that at both places we had been together. And so, but those conversations kind of were the seed of an idea. And then when COVID shut down travel and we had the opportunity to step out and try something on our own, we took the chance to do it, and started with the two of us, and we've grown it since then. So that's kind of how it came to be.
That's awesome. I think it's really interesting because our conversation today will be around how you guys have seen SEO and these practices as part of customer retention, but in all different kinds of companies. Because I'm assuming you mentioned, Scott, before that you guys are working with like the SMEs to larger size enterprises. But also one thing, I guess, to note, or one thing that I like to bring up all the time is that with our podcast, we're also going after Shopify business owners, and they're always looking for practical advice, like how do I go from here to there and how do I get actual insight? And so I think a lot of our listeners today will be really interested on your guys' insight around SEO and things like that. So I guess going now that we know all about the wealth of experience and the background that you both have, let's jump into SEO and talk about why it's more than just a tactic and how it's a powerful growth and retention tool. So I guess the first question I have here is, how could you use SEO to your advantage for growth and retention?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's foundational, right? I think when I was leading marketing in-house and had big, 9-figure budgets, I used to tell people, like, if I had $1 to spend, it would be on SEO, because going out in these paid media channels, it's renting attention, right? I'd much rather build something and build a capability that I can own in-house and produce now and into the future than to spend on a big program that as soon as the budget's gone, everything dries up. And so, that's why we view SEO as foundational to what good marketing programs do. It's not just about driving traffic. It's about reaching the right people at the right time, reaching your prospects with helpful content that they care about, reaching your existing customers with helpful content that they need to use your product or use your service better, encourage loyalty, be that trusted advisor and trusted resource that customers want. And SEO has helped them find that. We used to joke in banking that if there was a street corner in the world that had like 2 billion people on it, sort of hand raising, saying, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and this is exactly what I want to buy at this very moment in time, like everyone in the world would be scrambling to build a branch or a store there. And that's exactly what Google is. Everyone's on Google, hand raising, looking for what you have to offer. And if you're not there and not there prominently, that's a big missed opportunity. And so we sort of use search as the world's biggest focus group, and the data that you get there can inform not just the work that you do in SEO or paid search, for example, but it can inform a lot of stuff that you do in other marketing channels. And so it's a really must-do thing.
Mm-hmm. And do you have some ideas, or I guess some examples of case studies of when you've implemented this for companies and seen a transformation?
Yeah, we definitely have. I mean, we've worked with clients that are in financial services and travel, but we've got one in particular that's a mortgage company. They are really, really competitive market, competing with the likes of a Rocket Mortgage, Loan Depot, and obviously the big banks, big affiliates like Bankrate, NerdWallet, LendingTree. And so they came to us spending, tens of millions of dollars in paid media and affiliate. And they're like, hey, our organic search is terrible. They only showed up mainly for their brand terms. And they needed a way to really be more profitable with their investments and their spend. So we really doubled down on understanding, what's impacting not just technical issues with the site, but also really what do their customers care most about? And what are the questions people have? Where's the confusion in the marketplace? I think it's pretty complex, the mortgage industry. So how do you simplify it, put it in the user's voice, walk them through the process if you're a first-time home buyer, second-time home buyer, investment property, and really guide them, right? Don't sell your product, guide them to the solutions they might need based on their problems. So we did that really with thought leadership, calculators and the tools, and making sure the content was fresh and current. Worst thing you want to see as a user is coming into a website and finding old, outdated content. You don't really trust the site. But by doing those kind of efforts with this mortgage client, we're able to see their SEO traffic grow by nearly 50%, while other channels were getting to drop by 60% as they either cut back their paid media or as the mortgage rate industry began to go up and demand began to come down. So SEO became like a steady, always on channel for them. When they dialed back the spend, they still captured a lot of demand with search. And I think overall, from the time we started to maybe mid-2023, they saw a 10 times growth in their top 10 non-brand keyword rankings on Google, which was a big win for them. Yeah.
Yeah, that is super interesting. Actually, it also makes me think, because I personally, when I think of SEO, I think there's a lot of complexity around it. I think it's just because I don't know all the ins and outs about it. But one thing I'm wondering is, let's say someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're thinking to themselves, that sounds like I should be focusing on SEO and I should start doing that today. What are some of the questions that they should be asking themselves, or things that they should be considering as they're trying to focus towards a more, efficient SEO strategy?
Mm-hmm. The first one is I mentioned it earlier, do you know your audience? Do you really know what it is they're looking for? Because the searcher's intent, if I put a keyword search into Google or ask a question in Bing or down the road, right? I'm asking questions within ChatGPT. what's the why behind that question? And if you can understand that psychology of the user and even tap your current customers to know what they're thinking, why they ask it, what they expect to find, they're a great reflection of your prospective clients too. So knowing the audience is key, because that's going to then translate into, okay, what words and what content can you truly deliver to meet that intent? If there's a mismatch there, you're going to lose, right? But we see that a lot of times where an entrepreneur, a startup, or even an established brand, they want to chase really popular keywords. They have lots of demand. They cost a ton of money within Google Ads, but they don't have the content or the solutions or products to really meet that need. So that's basic, but that's really fundamental to the entire search program someone would launch.
I would say, a lot of brands and misconception is that this is a technical exercise. It's something that you put in the technology group that you do there's a checklist that you work right before a page launches, for example. And it's really, it starts way upstream of that, right? You have to do SEO right. It needs to be baked into the fabric of the organization. If you're doing agile sprints, you need to have SEO, the voice in the room. If you're doing content development, it needs to inform not just the words on the page, but the customer insight behind what you're doing and why. A lot of people treat it as writing for Google, and it's really not. It's writing for humans, delivering that value, answering those questions, satisfying that human intent, and then also having the technical expertise and the technical side experience that Google likes. And so it's an art and a science, but I think companies often over-index on the science part of it and try to treat it like some type of technical implementation or almost like a math equation, and it's neither.
I really like how you said you think that you're writing for Google, but you're writing for human intent, because I think so many people view it that way. And I think that's the way it comes across in a lot of these articles and these guides and things that you see, because people know that SEO is important, but it's trying to figure out how to do it correctly. So I can see why it was thought of as a science, but it's not really that. It's baked into the fabric of the organization, like you said. So speaking of how it's viewed, and I guess just how the industry has evolved, how is the SEO game changing? Are there new technologies? How does AI play a role into that? And tell me a little bit more about Google's third-party cookie overall, maybe get into the depths of how the SEO game is all changing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the last piece, which is the cookie. I think the cookie conversation started in 2016 maybe, and here we are 8 years later, and maybe it's dead, but I think it just got delayed again. It's changing for sure. But with the death of the cookie, or with the changing landscape in cookies, it's pushing, you need to have that customer on your site, having that zero-party data where customers are opting in for you to deliver personalization, which is key. And so in our eyes, that pushes up the value of SEO, right? You need to have something that's bringing people to your site so you can have the conversation that you want to have, that you used to be able to have in third-party spaces. Now it has to happen on you because of the way that the landscape is changing. And so that makes SEO more important. It also means that SEO is changing, and you have to sort of evolve with it. Some of the AI and the machine learning that Google's been using behind the scenes for a number of years, let's be honest, this type of thing, it's new from a customer facing perspective, but they've had AI and machine learning going on behind the scenes for a long time. And, but now that's coming out and people are using things like generative AI. We're starting to hear conversations about GEO, generative engine optimization, which is the exercise of how do I make sure that if somebody types, what's the best hotel in Dallas, that my hotel is the one that shows up and answers those questions. And so we view that as an extension of what SEO does. A lot of the things that you have to do to be good at SEO, or what you're going to have to be able to do to be good in those generative engine platforms. But it's an exciting time. It's an exciting space. And we think that, SEO died. I saw a stat at the end of 2022, I think, that said SEO died 26 times in its life. We're hearing about the death of SEO again, and I just don't think that's the case. Searching and discovery is an ingrained part of the way humans and consumers look for things and go about shopping and learning, and I don't think that's going to change. And so it's incumbent on us to help our clients figure out how do they stay present and visible in those changing environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one thing, or actually just checking, Scott, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Brent covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Awesome. Just checking. So I was just going to say, the other thing that I wanted to cover, or just kind of get into the depths of, is, and this might be my own misunderstanding or gap in knowledge around SEO, but I feel like people equate SEO to acquisition. It's always around getting the traffic, getting the customers to the company, and it's all about that side. But when you think about SEO with retention, so you've got the customers, you're trying to build a loyal customer base, how does SEO play a part into that? And what are some of the things that you have to think about to make sure that you're doing SEO correctly so that it's part of your retention strategy, not just your acquisition strategy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great one. So one thing we've observed with brands, if you don't have the right content on your site, they could be either an FAQ hub, a service portal. Other sites might answer the question for you in Google if you don't have the right content about your brand. So how do I change my password for X? How do I do this with Y? For a certain brand, other scraper sites, other community forums, if you don't have the content, someone else will. And you lose control of the conversation, A, as the brand. B, you lose a chance to deepen with your existing customer, to build trust with your customer, and to be seen as empathetic because you've got the content easily available when they're searching Google. So some tactics that we see that work well, Lauren, are really going to be around, A, are you mining your data for the questions people not only search online with Google, you can get that through Search Console, but how about your own site search? Right? Their own site search analytics you can get when people will begin to self-help, right? Call centers are a great source for SEO teams. Can you get aggregate data from your internal customer support teams? Like what's trending? What are the big friction points with our product? What are the biggest complaints with our services? What confuses the customers? That intel is right for writing quick, pithy answers, again, on FAQ hubs, support sections of your website. So you then can own the search result page when people go to Google to ask questions versus maybe using your app. So those are some tactics that work well from our perspective, really to retain the customer, to build that trust and demonstrate that, hey, you're there, you've got the answers, easy to stay with you and do business with you, and it might lead to further upsells or cross-sells.
Yeah,
Actually,
one of the issues we've seen, Scott mentioned it, but like, for example, we've partnered with some companies in the medical space, and customers are out searching for, how do I properly use this drug? Or, can I take this drug 3 times a day?
I just did.
Yeah. Can I give this to my child? And these are all things that are like human use cases for a medical product. The mismatch is that the companies often talk about prescribing information. They talk about scientific formulation. They talk about all the sort of technical parts of the medicine, but they don't talk about the sort of human questions that existing customers have about their product. And so there's a ton of opportunity in that space. It's just one example where smart marketing teams can go out and talk about the ways to use the products and the ways that customers talk about it in a way that's actually applicable to the way customers are searching for it, and marry up that intent with their own information to sort of own the customer conversation. What you don't want is somebody going on some choose your own adventure on all these medical sites where, and getting misinformation or wrong information or unhealthy, damaging information. And that can happen in financial services. It can happen in almost any industry. You want to own that conversation as it relates to your own product.
It's so funny that you mentioned that. Oh, sorry.
Add one quick thing. It's almost like the role of the SEO, at least inside of an organization, is to be the customer advocate, right? Like that's ideally the goal of a brand product marketer, but they have to promote the benefits and features of the product and services they're selling, and they're going to position it a certain way. So who's really advocating for the voice of, the needs of, the messaging to your end user, right? So that's where an SEO could really add that kind of value and educate their internal partners to be that advocacy, right? Use their language, use their verbiage. It's approachable, it's eye level. It can work well if you find that balance.
Yeah, I was going to say what's so funny about the example that you just gave, Brent, but when Scott was describing the retention side of things, was the first example that came to my mind was when I had these antibiotics that I was confused about because I threw away all the instructions and I had to go back and look at it, and obviously I threw it away, so it was just gone. But when I searched it online, I couldn't find any specific answer, and then all the things that came up were all medical terms. I am not a doctor. I had no clue, and so I was super confused. I had to go back to the pharmacy, go back to talk to the pharmacist, and do it all over again. But I definitely felt uneasy about the product afterwards, because I was thinking this is obviously something that you're taking, so it's like obviously a bit more of a sensitive thing. But even outside of that, I have used multiple different platforms. And when I search things about the platforms, if I'm finding more answers on Stack Overflow or on Quora or on Reddit, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm so undebated whether I trust this or not, because it's just people's personal opinion. So that resonates so much, but I didn't even think about that as an SEO thing, to be honest. I just thought about it as the way a customer's thinking about customer service, or a company's thinking about customer service. So that's
Think
really
about
great
how much
point.
money that pharmaceutical company puts into marketing and salespeople that are going into doctor's offices and sharing. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into getting you that prescription in your hand. And then for you to feel uneasy about using it is the last thing they want, right? They want to make sure that you know exactly what to do with it, how to use it, what it can and can't do with it. And so in some countries, it's hard to have that kind of content. There's a lot of laws and regulations. Sorry. Medical is a tough industry for a number of reasons, but it's an endemic problem across industry. I feel like a lot of companies' approach to marketing is completely acquisition forward. I'm focused on getting someone through the door, and then when they're through the door, I'm back to focusing on the next person through the door. And there's almost no cultivation of how do we keep these people happy and service them in a way that keeps them sort of loyal to the brand. And that's just a big opportunity for companies to think of things a little bit different.
Yeah. I think on our podcast here, we bring in people who talk about customer experience, customer service, customer happiness, understanding everything about the user from acquisition to retention. And I think that little nugget of insight is really helpful because I'm thinking about SEO in a whole different way of it's understanding the customer from their point of view, being an advocate for them and understanding how you weave that from start to finish. It's not just get them through the door because what happens after they're through the door. So I think that's really interesting because there's so many different ways to think about it. Actually piques, has an interesting question that just came to my mind was for you guys as customers. So you on the consumer side, for any products or services that you've used, where have you noticed that SEO is done really, really well as a consumer of the product or service?
I mean, it's a dual-edged sword, but when I travel, when I vacation, right? Like when I'm booking hotels, Google's for the past 7 to 8 years, Lauren, they've been intermediate traffic, right? So they're trying to keep users inside their ecosystem. You're seeing often less traffic to websites. So Google Travel's evolved. It's pretty awesome. Like the hotels experience. Hotels have to pay for a lot of the traffic they get that looks like organic, but the experience is pretty simple, right? For me as the user, everything's there for me. All the details about the property, when I'm going, when I'm staying, if I'm logged in through Google, updates on flights, when they're taking off, if they're late. That's become just like a super easy way for me to self-serve versus going on one app for a hotel, another app for the airline.
So true.
Yeah, it's gotten pretty awesome. All the photography, the other users who were there yesterday, I know what's happening. I know what the weather's like. It's as much as it's a little bit of a challenge for SEOs, candidly, as a consumer, it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So interesting, actually. How about you, Brent?
I would say the same thing. I think that when you look at sort of who is doing SEO really well and showing up for God knows how many searches, it's some of these OTA travel aggregator platforms in the travel space. And the reason is because, we often talk when we were in-house in the hotel business that SEO was one of many things that we needed to do for the organization. We had TV campaigns, we had on-site marketing we needed to do. These OTAs, all they do is search traffic. And so they have cut and sliced that data so thin. They've got pages for pet-friendly hotels in this neighborhood, in this market that have a pool that, they're just able to develop the level of specificity to capture almost any flavor or variation of consumer demand that's out there. And they do a really good job at it. And it's not just about sort of pumping out content. They do a really good job of organizing it in a way that, if this isn't for you, they've got a suggestion for something else. Lots of internal links so that you never have to leave their site. It's impressive to look at, and it's hard to duplicate.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. And I was even just thinking as you were giving that example, Scott, is that you can actually book everything that you need through Google and you can do it from start to finish. But it does make it just so seamless, and it actually is a nice experience as well. And actually, one of the examples that I always give on the show, so if anyone's listened to more than one episode, they'll be like, okay, she's talking about this yet again. Mm-hmm. But there's a custom shampoo and conditioner company that I use. And I really liked it because I was searching for this whole thing. And when I started searching, obviously I started getting more ads, I started getting more things, but I was happy to receive them because I was trying to look at all my different alternatives and my options in front of me. And when I chose this one company, what I thought was really cool, but I didn't even realize until much later, was that I kept getting content from the company called Pros. And Pros kept putting in things on my Google search because I was also searching for follow-up things afterwards. What should I be looking for after 3 months of use? What should I be doing as best practices? And it was all coming from Pros. And then I was like, this is great because now I really trust everything that they say. And I was still getting ads for people who did the user-generated content of having, let's say, this kind of hair before and then transforming to the hair that they wanted. But they continued that all throughout. And I've been a customer for about 1.5 years now. And I'm still seeing content about it because I'm still searching things about my hair. But everything is coming from pros. And now that we've had this conversation, I'm like, wow, they've done their SEO really well. So maybe that's a pretty good example.
Finding tons of search information to find out the types of questions customers have. And they're doing exactly what we said some firms are not doing, which is putting that out so that they can own the conversation. And I mean, they know their product better than anybody else. So talk about it so that people like you that are using it don't have to seek that information from someone else other than the provider.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, one of the last questions I have before we go to the lightning round is talking more about new media advisors and what you guys are up to. So what does the future look like for you guys? What are you excited about and working on these days?
Well, I think like the theme of your podcast is client retention, right? So we've been fortunate to have to be able to work with some pretty awesome brands, and our model of kind of working with their in-house teams to build better expertise, better capabilities with SEO and content, it's paying off for the clients. And in return, they're saying, hey, we love your insights, stay with us. So they're keeping us around, which that's good for us, kind of the high tech, high touch model. Yeah. So for us, that's our retention, is like high quality A players working with these clients to exceed expectations. And so I think, Lauren, we're looking to slowly, incrementally keep growing the base. Like I mentioned at the onset of this interview, I've been at firms that have just skyrocketed in growth, and you grow so fast, you can't keep up. So we're being really diplomatic in how we grow. The clients we work with, if we're not the right fit, we'll recommend that they try someone else, right? And we try to matchmake to others. But, we're looking to grow selectively with brands we know we can drive impact for, bring in talent that maybe work in-house at a brand, and they've gotten a little bit bored after 7-8 years, and they want to work on multiple big brands. So we're kind of fractional SEO channel leaders and fractional content leaders for these clients. So we'll keep growing in that space. We do have plans to begin to expand kind of our services and capabilities around AI. Everyone's building something with AI. So, we've had some clients ask us how they can really equip their teams with more intel. So we're looking to really build out some capabilities that get into making clients and their teams smarter, better, faster with different functions of in-house digital. So yeah, we'll stay tried and true to the consulting model with a little tech with it. And I think it's a good path.
That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited to see how that goes. And just before I let you guys go for the afternoon, we always end off our episodes on a lightning round of just fun questions and the first answer that comes to your mind. So maybe what I'll do is I'll ask one question to Brent, one to Scott, and then both of you can answer the last one. So for Brent, what's an achievement that you're most proud of in your career?
I changed lanes, right? I changed lanes 25 years into a career and got off the corporate ladder and took a risk to start something new. And just the ability to sort of look 4 years later and feel like not only was the risk worth it, but it's been like the most fun job I've ever had, which is partnering with Scott to build new media. I'm really proud of what we've achieved, and I'm proud of the people that we've got working with us and the impact we've delivered for clients. It's just been a really gratifying experience.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah, that one ready to go. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Scott, your question is, this one's a bit more fun, I would say. Okay. Who would you say has mastered the art of marketing? Doesn't have to be a marketer. It could be an artist or an athlete, anybody, but they've mastered the art of marketing.
I might show my bias a little bit. So I'm a big sports fan. Oftentimes when we take a break and get my lunch break, I'll turn on ESPN talk radio, and Pat McAfee is kind of like the new personality in talk show sports. And so I think he's a genius, marketing genius. He's authentically himself. He really empathizes with the audience. He's really disrupting sports talk media, and he has a positive attitude. He's an energy giver. He's excited about what he does, but he's really like cross-channel. He's gone from, purely audio to YouTube to big ESPN. Now he's doing like NFL draft. He's doing WWE commentary. He's all over the place, right? College game day. So he's just kind of skyrocketed on the scene, and he owns his brand, and I think he's a marketing genius with it. Yeah.
Sounds like he's got good personal SEO. Seems like he's got it all figured.
He's got it covered in spades. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Last but not least for both of you, this is also one of my favorite questions because you learn so much about someone. But is there a piece of marketing or life advice that someone shared with you once that has always stayed with you?
For me, for sure. My dad was a minister and gave lots of good advice and lots of good for a lot of people, right? I talk to a lot of people, and I certainly got a ringside seat. And he once told me, enjoy the climb or get off the mountain. And that sort of basically said, if you're climbing the career ladder or whatever it is you're doing, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, there is no destination, right? The trip is it's in the journey, right? You're never going to get there, quote unquote. So if you're not enjoying the climb, do something else. And that's always stuck with me. And even though he's gone now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a quote I keep on my wall. You can't see it here. Just to remind me of kind of like, to Brent's point, like what's the destination and the why behind what we do. It's a quote I pulled down from Ray Kroc. And it talks about the notion of, if you just work for money, you're never going to make it. But if you truly love what you're doing and you put the customer first, then you'll be successful. Right. So Brent touched on his proudest achievement is what we've launched here. Right. So we love what we're doing. We always try to put the customer first. So those two things combined are going to give you fulfillment work. Financial rewards will come down the road. So yeah, that was helpful for me. I saw that quote, like 10, 15 years ago. Because I was always like, I got to keep working to make more money,
Yep.
money for sure. But that personal intrinsic value is stuck with me.
I like that a lot because you guys are obviously rooted and aligned on the passion piece. So obviously there's a reason this is all working out. So I really like that. And with that, we will bring the episode to a close. So thank you both so much for joining me. It was a pleasure to have you. And I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of New Media Advisors. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.